Welcome to another episode of the Doctors Building Wealth podcast. Today, Kenji and I are going to be answering a question that we get a lot in our community, and that is, how much do I need to have saved up before investing in rental properties? So this is a common question because people worry that they don't have enough money to be able to start investing. And so they think that they have to wait and they have to go and save up some money, and then they're going to be able to go start building their real estate portfolio. Now, this is a really dangerous idea to have because what it does is it delays you from taking action. And then what oftentimes you'll find is it's been 5 years and you still haven't taken action and you wish you started 5 years before. So this is a really important one, I think, for us to address because we commonly hear it and because it's so common as a reason that people point to be in analysis paralysis, perhaps for even years. So what would you say to somebody, Kenji, coming to you and saying, hey, how much money do I need to have saved up before I can start investing in real estate?
Yeah, well, where to start? There's so many different ways I can answer this question. I think would be a good place to start is talking about limiting beliefs. And so limiting beliefs are beliefs that you have that hold you back. And this is a belief that Leti and I had. Definitely, I had probably more than Leti, where I was really had money scarcity. I thought that, okay, just like a lot of our students that go through our course, that, we need to save up before we can buy any properties, right? And if we don't have that money, then we can't buy any properties. And that was the belief that I had. And think about how limiting that is, because if that's true, if I believe that's true, I'm going to make it true. And that means that yes, we're not even going to make an effort if we don't have that money saved up in order to have enough for a down payment and renovations to buy a property.
So what's the opposite empowering belief in that, oh, I have to wait until I've saved up a certain amount of money to be able to invest in real estate, or I can't invest in real estate because I don't have enough money? Well, the empowering belief can be, hey, I'm going to find a way to invest in real estate in a really creative way. And I'm going to learn how to get really good at creative financing, or I'm going to create the relationships and I'm going to get the knowledge to be able to do it. It's really a resourcefulness that you can decide to believe in yourself or even believe in others. You can say, hey, I'm going to get a mentor who has done this types of things and I'm going to learn from them. But it's just really a mindset of, hey, I'm going to figure this out, or I'm going to find somebody to help me figure this out. And so I'm going to find a way to make it happen no matter how much money I have in the bank, even if it's just a couple $1,000s.
Yeah, and one analogy that I think is helpful, and hopefully this is a useful analogy for you guys. A lot of our audience is doctors, and so a lot of you had this dream of becoming a doctor before applying to medical school. So you were in college, you were thinking about what you're going to do, and you had this dream, I want to be a doctor. And so then you apply to medical school, but you apply to medical school without actually thinking about all the costs, right? That this is going to be like the tuition for some of these places is crazy. You're going to be like multiple six figures in debt if you don't have the money for it, right? And luckily there are a lot of mechanisms to pay for that, right? There are scholarships, there are student loans, so the solutions are already there. But what if, like, just kind of pretend for a moment that those solutions like student loans, scholarships, let's say that those weren't available, then what would you do, right? You would sit there and you go, if you had the limiting belief, I don't have enough money to go to medical school, then you would just quit and you would stop and you wouldn't even think any further and you would choose a different path, right?
And for those of us who maybe were in this situation, because I was one of those people actually, another kind of thing that I leaned on was, okay, well, once I become an attending, then I'm going to have some money and I'm going to use that to pay it off. So there was a sense that, once I had reaped some of the rewards of going through this process, then I was going to have more money and I was going to be able to pay it off. And I think that, when you're investing in real estate, you could choose to have the empowering belief that, once I buy a couple properties, I'm going to get that knowledge. I'm going to be that much more resourceful. I'm going to have some cash flow coming in. I'm going to have some tax savings coming in. And you should, if you do it right. And then that's going to be able to fund your next piece of your portfolio. And people forget that the next property that they can buy may have other sources of income that's coming in from their real estate portfolio, not just them having to earn it, but they don't look that far ahead. They're really just worried about where they are right now, and they're using their current present situation and they're extrapolating that to, what's going to happen for the next 5 years. But what they don't know is they don't know how they're going to have other sources of income, a year or two into the real estate portfolio. They don't see that. They don't know that yet. And so they can't start to even realize that that's going to be an option for them down the road.
Yeah, and just to take that analogy a little bit further, you go to medical school, you accumulate all this debt, and then you get a job, and it turns out to be a high-paying job. Let's say that you didn't even know any of that, right? But the point is that you have acquired some skills, And then from there, the idea is that you're going to go get a job and then you're going to pay off, all that debt. And so similarly here with real estate, I think one of the keys is to start opening those doors, start gaining some of that experience. And then from there, as Leti mentioned, you buy some properties, you start to figure out ways to buy properties with less money or maybe even no money. Maybe out of the gate, that sounds completely crazy. But once you get into real estate investing, once you acquire the skills, once you build some relationships, then you'll start to see that there are all these other options for buying these properties with little or no money down.
I think another thing people do is maybe they see that like a Fannie or Freddie loan, conventional loan for a duplex or a fourplex generally requires 25% down. And then they anchor on that number and they say, okay, I have to put 25% down for every single property. That's the way it is. So I have to save up enough to put 25% down for every single property. So I can't invest in real estate until I have 25% down for some fictional property that I have in my head. And so therefore I'm going to put this off. But what they don't realize is there's creative financing. So creative financing is there are many, many ways to invest in real estate and to be able to buy properties that don't require 25% down or don't require that much down, even for Fannie and Freddie backed loans. And so there are a lot of options you don't know about when you're a newer investor. And so all you can see is, the most basic of options. And you start to, again, extrapolate that into, hey, I always need this amount down. Now, what we've seen is a lot of people use creative financing from putting 10% down for second home loans for short-term rentals, all the way through seller financing, all the way through, getting commercial loans and going bigger right off the bat with their property size and being able to get seller credits and come to the table with very little down. So there's so many ways to do creative financing. And I don't want to get into the weeds of creative financing because that in itself would be, a 50-minute podcast on its own. But just know that as a newer investor, you really don't have a sense of all the possibilities because you just haven't seen them. And so you can't even begin to imagine what's possible because you have such a narrow view of how loans work and what the options are for being able to fund your real estate portfolio.
I do think it would be helpful to just provide one example if I could. And so there's an example of a student of ours who bought a 6-unit, and this was a relatively affordable 6-unit. It was about $350,000. And what they were able to do is they built a relationship with a commercial lender who said it would be okay for them to put down 10%. Right? And as Leti mentioned earlier, for these Fannie Freddie conventional loans, when you're buying a 1 to 4 unit property, it's typically going to be 25% down. So this commercial lender said, you can put down 10%. And that means on a $350,000 purchase price, we're talking about $35,000. Now, what else did they do? Well, the other thing that they did was they actually negotiated with the seller, and the seller agreed to $29,000 in credits. And what that did was that lowered the amount that they needed to bring to the table. They only had to bring $6,000 down to buy this $350,000 property. And so now, I don't know what percent that is, but it's a very, very low percentage down. And again, I just wanted to kind of paint that picture of how they used two creative things. One was getting the commercial lender to agree to 10% down. And the second thing was getting the seller to agree to seller credits to significantly lower their down payment.
Yeah, you really, again, this takes you back to our discussion right at the very beginning about limiting beliefs and having a belief of your resourcefulness. You have to believe that you will be able to get the knowledge to do things like that and to be able to figure it out and be able to put yourself in the right communities with the right mentors to be able to access these creative financing options. And if you just believe that, then you know you're going to figure it out eventually, then you can move forward and you can say, okay, I have whatever money I have in my bank account. I have the faith that once I've used that up, I'm going to be creative enough and have enough experience and have enough relationships that I'm going to be able to find other ways to buy properties. And I just want to normalize that all of us run out of money at some point as real estate investors. Kenji and I have personally run out of money multiple times for being able to buy purchase properties because we get a few good deals under our belts, and then all of a sudden more and more good deals come to us, and we may not have much liquid cash at that point to be able to get these new deals, but they're coming to us and we want to be able to take advantage of them. That's when you start to get really creative because you really want to, because there are really great deals in front of you. That's when you think about partnerships. One of the things that we did at one point is we liquidated one of our 401ks. There's really some unique things that you can do when you think to yourself, how can can I go out and be able to buy this property? And you start to open up your mind to all the different options, and you have the knowledge from being in a community, from being around mentors, to have seen what other people have done. Then you're in such a really great situation to be able to buy any property of any size, which is actually what we teach in one of our masterminds, is how do you buy any property, any size, anywhere. So just know that is even possible, looking at 100 units and saying, hey, I can be able to buy this property even if I have $5,000 in my bank account, because I now have the skills and knowledge and relationships to be able to do that. So understand that you can even get to that extreme eventually.
And so just to illustrate that further, over the last 24 months, we've acquired over 1,500 syndicated doors, which means that in partnership with other people and with capital raising, so raising money from passive investors. And just thinking back to my original limiting belief about I don't have enough money, or I need to have X amount for the down payment if I'm going to be able to buy a property. If I held on to that limiting belief, there's no way that I would have even thought to go out and partner and capital raise. These solutions would not have been available to me because I would have limited myself from even thinking that way. And that's the real danger of a limiting belief. That's how much a limiting belief can hold you back. And again, this is from personal experience and many, many years of holding on to this limiting belief and limiting our growth.
Yeah, I don't think this is just something Leti and Kenji can do. We have a whole community of mastermind people who are going out and raising money and being able to get a piece of these large properties. And so it's not something that is just for us. It's actually something that's really available to you. Once you build the skill sets to learn how to invest in real estate, you have that ability to also be able to scale up much more than you can even start to fathom when you're just starting out and you're running your first few cash on cash calculators. So understand there's a lot of potential here. Understand that you're a resourceful individual. I think take on that identity of resourcefulness, and that you're going to figure it out no matter how much money you have to start out investing, that you're going to find a way to make it happen and find a way to get to financial freedom as fast as possible, for yourself and for your family, because it's a really noble why. It's got a lot of emotion, a lot of drive behind it. And when you have that in place, what you can accomplish is so much more than you can even imagine when you're first starting that journey. So I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Doctors Building Wealth podcast, all on how much money do you need to have saved up before you can start investing in real estate. Make sure to share this with a friend if they're interested in real estate investing. Leave us a review and subscribe to this podcast. We'll see you next time.